Leaders we played way back when Kyle was still here. We can't help to do it 2HG style whenever we sit in this kind of configuration. Kyle's on the left, playing Brian's Jori En, the Tiny Leaders diver. We don't see him too much outside Tiny Leaders. This is your standard Jori En burn and draw deck. Rob is once again playing his face-down creature-centric Animar deck. Brian's in the right side of the screen playing his Jinara Ashura of War Blink deck. Lots of ETB creatures. Finally is me playing my Geist of St. Traft deck. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Change the channel, he's playing Geist again. Don't worry, I'm mulliganing not once, not twice, not thrice, but quadrice times. Takes me a while to find my footing this game. Luckily, I did mull into 2 lands, and it being Tiny Leaders means that the 2 lands should be all on you for a while. Rob and Kyle decide to draw this game, meaning Brian and I go first. I scry with Temple of Enlightenment, even though I already scried from my mini mulligans. Grim Lavamancer from Kyle. On our turn 2, Brian casts one of his mini Blinksters, Mistmeadow Witch. I cast Wall of Omens and draw a card. Rob plays Secret Plans, which benefits face-down creatures he controls. Young Pyromancer from Kyle. This card works well with the mini sorceries he has in the deck. Not having much going else at the moment, I play an early game Geist of St. Traft, not expecting too much removal from either of their decks. No plays from Brian. On their turn, Kyle plays Vendilion Click, targeting Brian, who responds with a click of his own, right back at Kyle. Brian's resolves first, taking Kyle's Mystical Tutor, so Kyle can't get Bonfire of the Damned and put it on top of his library for a miracle. Advantage Brian for Kyle playing Brian's deck. Kyle rids Brian of his Engineered Explosives. They both draw cards. Animar, Solo Elements from Rob. I cast Sword of Feast and Famine, but I'm 1 mana short of equipping it this turn, so I don't attack. Brian has a sword of his own to Plowshares, targeting the Pyromancer, so Kyle gets no value whatsoever off it, but does gain 2 life. Brian then plays his second blinker, Eldrazi Displacer. Rob plays his first down creature of the match, countering up Animar. Kyle then blows out Brian with a card I've never even heard of before, Fall of the Titans with Surge. Ah yes, 2-headed giant, the Surge format. Brian loses his 2 1 toughness creatures. Then Storm Chaser Mage and a damage from Kyle. He admits he did that in the wrong order. We take 4 damage in the air. I equip the Geist with the sword and attack for 8. I send my attack at Rob, but Kyle blocks for him, taking 4 damage from the Angel. The sword does not connect. On their turn, Rob morphs his creature. I don't get why some people say unmorph. It's morph. Why would you say unmorph? It's Rattleclaw Mystic, and then plays another face-down creature and morphs it into Cloudstone Curio, which with Animar seems bad, so I mana leak it. Rob draws each time from his enchantment. Rob is almost already admitting defeat at this point, surprisingly not because of Geist of St. Traft, but because of Jinara's Eldrazi Displacer. It perfectly gets around the Animar's ability. He thought at first Animar had the protection, but Displacer is colorless, so it can not only block Animar, but more importantly, it can blink Animar, removing all the counters from it. Kyle currently has nothing that can kill it. Kyle casts his own Sword of Feast and Famine and equips it to the Vendilion Click. They attack, and Brian, of course, blinks the sorted creature. It comes back, targeting Rob with the clicks, reveal, and draw effect. Rob puts Lifeblood Hydra on the bottom. We take 5 damage. I again attack with the Geist, which gets blocked, and the Angel token gets through for 4. Eternal Witness from Brian, returning STP to hand. On Rob's upkeep, not wanting him to get any value from Animar, the Displacer blinks it, returning to the battlefield tapped. Kyle re-equips the sword and attacks. I unexpectedly absent the sword for 2, sending it back to Kyle's library. We take 4 damage. We then go straight to combat in our turn, and they take 4 damage from the unblocked Angel. Rob again blocks with one of his creatures. Then another 4 in the air from their team. Then, at the end of their turn, Brian goes to blink his Witness when Rob overloads Cyclonic Rift, bouncing everyone's but his stuffs. In response to that, Brian breaks his Corrosion Verge for more mana so he can recast all that stuff again next turn, but in response, Kyle Lightning Bolts the Eternal Witness, so Brian does not get it back. Then on Brian's upkeep, he recasts the Click to target Brian and send his Displacer to the bottom so that it can't hurt Rob's Animar anymore. That's flipping teamwork.
That's fucking teamwork!
Now that we have no things on the field, I can cast my Council's Judgment, exiling Rob's Animar. I then recast my Geist. Okay, check out Brian's turn here. He casts Crystal Shard, and then casts Fiend Hunter, which, along with Crystal Shard, exiles Kyle's Vendilion Click and bounces the Hunter in response to the target, exiling it permanently. Kyle recasts his Haste Prowess Flyer, and Animar comes back out. I go to recast Sword of FNF, and Kyle counterspells it, which will prevent me from attacking with Geist completely this turn. Brian then does his Fiend Hunter Crystal Shard trick to exile Kyle's Storm Chaser. Then Janara comes out for the first time this game. Rob draws and casts Vandal Blast on Brian's Crystal Shard. He regrets that Kyle used the counterspell on my sword there. This will, though, put an end to Brian's foolishness with the shard. Then on my turn, I get Stoneforge Mystic, but Kyle casts Snapcaster Mage in an attempt to counter it, but I'm ready with the Essence Scatter. I get Sword of Fire and Ice, but now don't have enough mana to cast and equip it this turn. Guess we'll have to wait again to attack next turn. Brian attacks with Janara and eats one of Rob's flyers. On their turn, Geist is going to have to wait even longer to attack now because Kyle miracles Bonfire of the Damned, which arrived at the perfect moment. I take 5 damage and lose all my creatures. Rob casts a face down a Death Mist Raptor and Megamorphs it, also drawing a card. Animar attacks for 4 and Brian chumps it. Brian puts 3 counters on Janara. Then on Brian's main phase, he casts a Cyclonic Rift overloaded of his own, not hurting me at all. Janara attacks for 6, and then I recast my commander and Mirran Crusader. Then on their turn, Jori-En comes out for the first time this game. Rob recasts his entire hand, bringing Animar all the way up to 6 counters. That is not bad. That board is reduced pretty quickly though when I sort out my Geist, and then Brian casts Fiend Hunter again, exiling Rob's Death Mist Raptor, and casts Engineer Explosives for 2, and uses it, blowing up all 2 CMC cards. We attack with everything, and Burge jumps in front of the Sorted Geist. They go to 3 life. Before passing, Brian Swords to Plowshares Jori-En to keep Kyle off of any advantage. On his main phase, Kyle casts Isochron Scepter, imprinting into the Royal, and then uses it to return Fiend Hunter back to Brian's hand. Rob activates Raging Ravine and then attacks, triggering the Raging Ravine attack effect. Brian casts Snapcaster Mage in hopes of blocking Animar, though he doesn't have enough mana to actually use the Storage to Plowshares, he flashes back with it. But Rob's ready with the Izzet Charm to deal 2 damage and kill off the Snapcaster Mage before blockers. All the damage gets through and we hang on at 1 life. They have no other play or direct damage from Jori En, which means all we have to do on our next turn and they're dead. Whew. And that's the game for Geist of St. Traft and Janara Ashura of War. Well, there you have it. That might be the longest game of Time Leaders we've ever played, especially with Geist of St. Traft. That game was actually so long that there were 2 overloaded Cyclonic Rifts from both sides that game, and neither of them ended the game. Animar's pro removal colors are always relevant. That guy is so hard to kill. Geist is too normally, but even when he was alive, I don't even think he connected with damage once that game. Rob was able to rack up a pretty good card advantage with his not only Animar, but also drawing cards from his secret plans. Quite an interesting deck Rob has there. Kyle was mostly letting Rob run the show as he was unfamiliar with both the deck he was playing as well as the Tiny Leaders format itself. Brian's Janara deck did a lot of the heavy lifting that game in both the start and end of the game, as a Geist 4-card opening hand took me a while to fully recover. Well, that's it for now. We hope you enjoyed this game of 2-headed giant Tiny Leaders, and come back next time for some more exciting gameplay action. Stay cool, stay clone.